So this is my 3 medium hive I have in a location that I call the Magic Forest. And it's got a hard piece of insulation underneath this inner cover, or underneath this top cover. There is no inner cover. That's the only ventilation that they have. It's a solid bottom board. Last year I only put the silver bubble wrap around it very loosely, just more or less as a windbreak. This year I'm going to tape, you can see I'm just taping normal styrofoam. Probably has an R value of 1 or less or something. Just around the sides. It's not going to go down to the bottom because the bottom is probably already empty of bees. The bees are probably up here by now. I can hear them buzzing. They know I'm here. This colony, this exact colony in this exact location, they came through the winter last winter beautifully, and it was through the most robust, strongest colony I've ever had. I got more honey out of them than I've ever seen in my life. But the only thing is that in the spring, they were great. Cluster was huge, everything was fine, but there were several frames near the edges that were just moldy, full of white, gross, wet mold. And it's probably because the sides were really cold and there was a lot of condensation on the sides, and that's where the mold would develop and it would just get wet, or like too wet. So I'm hoping this little bit of insulation this year will prevent that. I think they'll still be as strong as can be, like they were last year, hopefully. But when I clean them up in the spring, they won't be, hopefully, as messy as it was last year. Though they were still in fantastic shape last year. And that's all I did with them last year. Last year there was just the top insulation, basically, and a little bit of loose wrap that didn't really do much of anything other than provide a bit of windbreak. So we'll see. All right, that's it. It's all done. So I've got the side taped up, that side taped up, the front taped up, and the back taped up. That's it. Nothing fancy. We'll see what happens. I'll come back here next, probably April, May, and we'll see how they did. They should be, I think, in really good shape. The only thing I would say that could slow them down is if the queen, who's getting a little bit old, not too old, has petered out. But otherwise, I think they've got all kinds of food. It's nice and dry, nice and warm. Thick insulation up top, this thin insulation on the sides, and the bottom, it's cold. Any kind of condensation, respiration from the bees will condense down there eventually, pour out the hive, la-da-da-da-da-da. If it gets moldy or wet down there, not a big deal. It's better to have it down there than up here where the honey is located. I want them to eat that honey, and I've noticed in the past, over, I don't know, however long it's been now, 14 years, when the frames on the side do get moldy and wet, the bees are less likely to do anything with them, and there could be good honey that they could eat that they won't access, and they'll even starve to death, even though there's honey up there. So anyway, this tuck tape, keep this stuff on, I hope. If there are any northern flickers or other birds, they may peck at this stuff, so I'm just going to leave it alone for now and see what happens. But at the very most, I'll put some sort of bubble wrap around it just to protect it from birds or whatever. But otherwise, this is it. The hard insulation up top is, I don't know, I don't think that one is. I don't think I did seal that one with silicone. I just used tuck tape, but it's sealed in really well. Everything is sealed. You can't see it, but the cracks between the supers, because there are some, is sealed with silicone. And you can hear the bees. They weren't doing that before I got here, but the slightest bang, and that's the trick with doing anything in the bees in the wintertime, is try not to, tap. Any kind of tap or any kind of vibration, that gets them going. So hopefully they'll just calm down and not burn up too much energy being alarmed at the human who's messing around with their hive. But it's good though. I can hear them buzzing. If the cluster was up high and it was buzzing, I wouldn't hear it as clearly as I can right now. So they're probably, they could be actually still down in the bottom bars, but just further back from the front of the hive. But I would say they're They're like halfway up this super right now, and slowly they'll work their way up throughout the winter to the top and just eat the honey that's still in there. I don't plan to open this hive until next May, April, something like that. What else can I say? This is a standard mouse guard. The width of these little, I don't know, what do you call those little holes? I think from bottom to the top, it's 3/8 of an inch. And from the sides, I think it's a 1/4 of an inch, maybe. I think it's a little bit more than a 1/4 of an inch, actually, because, well, here's a 1/4 of an inch right there. This is 1/4 inch mesh. And I think that's a 1/4 of an inch. So this is, yeah, a little bit wider than 1/4 of an inch. And so, yeah, it's almost 1/2 an inch high and a little bit more than a 1/4 of an inch wide. I don't know what that is in metric. And I don't think shrews can get in there. Some people think that shrews aren't a thing. Yeah, they're a thing. They definitely are a thing. They definitely get inside hives. I've seen shrews inside my hives with bees in them, live bees, not just the shrews came in after they were dead. And things, shrews don't come in after the bees have died. They eat live insects, so yeah. So I think that'll keep the shrews out. This guard, they're made for hives that don't have, or bottom boards that don't have these ridges. So I had to cut the edges off them and then just tack them on. Yeah, so it's freezing. They're nice and cozy. The only other thing too that I might do later on, once it gets really cold and windy, I don't have a board right now. Oh, yes, I do. I'll take this partially rotten piece of wood, not now, but later, and I'll put it over the entrance like this, sort of like that. So they can still breathe. They still get the ventilation they need, but any cold wind coming this way shouldn't be as bad, as harsh blowing into the hive. At least that's what I've been doing the last few years, and it seems to not hurt. This is one of my other not so strong colonies that I just put this styrofoam around today, and it's I don't have high hopes for this one at all. I don't know why I say that. Well, I can say it for a few reasons, I suppose. One is that it's a smallish cluster. It's on the small side. Definitely, yeah, it's a small cluster in a hive that's too big for itself. Small clusters should be in small hives. Big clusters should be in big hives. And this is a small cluster in a big hive. And that's never good. Without getting too much into the physics, it's basically a small cluster has a harder time thermal regulating the space within a large hive. They do much better with a smaller space. That's why bigger hives do good in a big space too. Anyhow, yeah, not looking good. They're basically living off of fondant right now. I've got a big chunk of fondant right here underneath the feeding rim. You can't see right now, and they're just living off of that. When I pull the top off, or clinging to the bottom of the top cover, or it's actually a big piece of insulation, that's never good at this time of year, going into winter. Like maybe near the end of winter, they've moved their way up, but now they're up already. The only thing that I know that would cause them to cluster and cling to the top of the hive right now would be some sort of rodent, like a mouse in the hive, that spooks them up. But I don't think that's the case. But could be. I don't know. I haven't seen any signs of it. Probably what it is just that they're cold. But mostly they're hungry. And they're just a small colony. It's just a small cluster. They were showing some troubles sometime around August. And I should have taken some efforts to just pull the brood and just, combine them with a stronger colony, and just kill the queen. But I didn't. I just didn't have time. I got a full-time job that sort of interferes with everything I like to do with my beekeeping. So that's what it is. Not the greatest situation, but maybe I'll keep them alive. They might stay alive. They might be alive by next spring, but I don't expect big things from them. And I expect that I'll just take them and combine what's left of them with another colony, or I'll just put them in a small nuke and just keep them alive as a spare queen or something. But I don't have any expectations of this being what you'd call a viable colony next year. And viable doesn't necessarily mean, or unviable doesn't necessarily mean dead. It just doesn't mean that they're going to build up and be a honey producer. And I'd say about at least once every 6 weeks for the next, until April, I'll be lifting the top off this hive on warm days just to see how much of their fondant they've eaten through. And I'll probably just keep dumping fondant inside the hive to keep them going. And we'll see how it goes. But that's it. The only other thing right now is this is styrofoam. And I know I have northern flickers, woodpeckers in this area that love this stuff. So once I see woodpeckers, if I see them pecking at it, I'll just wrap it with some silver bubble wrap, and that should protect them from the birds. Yeah, this is what beekeeping is.